Welcome to Wealth Talk, Mark.
Thank you, Christian.
So, Mark, you've been a Wealth Builders member for how long now?
It's about 7 or 8 months, I think, isn't it?
Okay,
Something like that.
that's great. And tell us about your connection with Action Coach.
Okay, so I became an action coach about 3.5 years ago now. I left a corporate role and was looking for something that I could do that I really enjoyed doing, but I could do locally rather than at the time what was globally. I wanted to be a business coach. I knew about business coaching from somebody else I know in the UK. And I found the Action Coach franchise, which I decided to become a member of. And that's how we got into it, really.
That's it. And obviously, we talk about the 7 pillars within Wealth Builders, and we're certainly entrenched in the business pillar here. Why do you like business in particular?
Why do I like business? For me, it ticks all the boxes in terms of if you get it right, it can be really exciting, really fulfilling. It's also, I strongly believe business is done between people, not just companies. And I strongly believe in the power of relationships. So a lot of my background has been in building really strong relationships between customers, suppliers, businesses, business units, that sort of stuff. And that's what I really get a kick out of, being able to achieve something, do something surprising, something that nobody thought you could, using the power of systems, processes, people, and really making a difference.
Yeah. And on the previous episode of Wealth Talk, we heard Chris Henry talking through the 5 ways to increase business profits. And before that, Richard Perry, who's another action coach, looked at the 8 drivers of business, which was the value builder system. And you're going to take us through another aspect of the framework today, aren't you, Mark?
Yeah. So I'm going to take you through what we call the 6 steps to building a business that works without you. So the 6 steps framework, if you like. As with a lot of these things, a framework makes the complex much more simple. So, Christian, I've given you the PDF of what the 6 steps looks like, and if those of you listening to the podcast, if you have a chance to look at that as we're going through this podcast, that will probably help, because, as we often say, a picture tells 1,000 words. So you have the PDF there. It also will allow people to score their own businesses themselves as a business owner on where they are on this level of 6 steps, which might give them some useful pointers as to what to do with their business next.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll link in the show notes. So if you're listening now, you can actually click on the link and that will open up the PDF and you can have a look through as, Mark, you begin to explain the first step. Okay,
great. So for those of you who aren't able to look at the PDF, we see the 6 steps as sort of the one of the sides of the pyramid. So you've got a series of steps, if you like, heading upwards from the bottom, which is the widest step. And we call this, the first step, we call mastery. This is kind of the foundation for your business. So the first step is the one that we have to make sure is strong enough to allow your business to develop in the way you want it to in the future. So when we talk about building a business that can work without you, as action coaches, we use a certain phrase. We call it a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Now, that does actually scare quite a few of the business owners I talk to, in that quite often they don't want to step out of their business completely. They don't want the business to work without them. It's kind of their baby and they want to see it grow up and keep in touch with it, if you like. So you should see this more as a business that can work without you, because ultimately, if you can get to that point, you have choice. And this is all about building choice for a business owner. It's about choice in terms of how much time you want to spend within the business, and then how much time you want to spend doing other things, wealth building activities, time with the family, sports, whatever that might be. It's also about choice as to what you do within the business, what roles you take, what activities you do if you want to stay within the business. And it's also about choice as to how much time you spend looking after your business. So really what we're looking at here is a system that builds choice as opposed to a system that puts you into one place that you may or may not want to go. So that's what we're looking at. Does that make sense, Christian?
It does, because it's a trap that I'm sure you see with many business owners, that they actually end up just creating a job for themselves, and they're wearing all the many hats, and they don't have the freedom that they perhaps got into business for in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the outside, and I'm sure people who own and run businesses see this all the time, people think you own and run a business, A, you must be rich, and B, you must be able to take all the time off you want, whenever you want, and spend most of your days on the golf course. For the majority of business owners in this country, I'd say that both of those things aren't realities, but they could be. And that's what we work towards. So if you look at the 6 steps, and we take the first one, for example, this is the master. You're looking at the PDF, and this is about building a really strong foundation that your business can grow from. So we talk about there being 4 aspects to mastery. The first is destination mastery, knowing where your business is going. And a really great question for this is something that a lot of people I talk to have difficulty answering, and that's, what does your business look like when it's finished? Now, that talks about a lot of people don't get the idea that actually a business could be finished, because they're thinking in terms of a job that they will just turn up to and keep doing until at some vague point in the future they will retire in some way, shape or form. But first of all, I'd encourage anybody running a business at this point to decide what actually their fixed end point is, whether it's an exit strategy. So if you go back to the podcast from Richard Perry, this may be about building your business to sell, or it may be about building your business to leave as a legacy to the next generation if you have family that want to come through, or it may be about building a business that can run without you so that you can build a passive income. Maybe this is part of your retirement plans, who knows? But whatever it is, it's really important that you get that end in mind as a business owner, because without that destination, without that direction of where the business is going, you may or may not get there. You'll get somewhere, but it might not be where you wanted to go in the first place. So it's really important that we start with the end in mind. And if you look at the destination part of the mastery level, we talk about building a really good business plan. So I'm not talking about a 40-page document that you wheel out once every so often to put in front of the banks. And then for the rest of the time, until you go into the bank again, it sits in the drawer of the finance controller's office. I'm talking about a business plan that you can use to show and motivate your team, inspire your team to help them move their business in the right direction and get it where it wants to go. We also look at, okay, so what are the 10, 5, 3 and 1 year goals for your business? Now, some businesses don't have 10-year goals. One of the businesses I'm working with at the beginning was absolutely very clear. They wanted to build a business they could sell within 3 years. That was it, done, finished. They weren't looking 5 years, 10 years. They were out of the business at that point. So it's whatever the long-term future is for your business that counts. And then once you've got your 1 year view, where do you want to get to in a year? We look at how you break that down into quarterly chunks. So what do you have to do in the next 90 days to get your business a quarter of the way to where you want it in that first year? Because if you manage to do that, you'll manage to hit your first year, then you'll manage to hit your third year, and then you take your business to where you want it to go. So the destination theme is all about building a really clear vision for you, your business, and the rest of your team about where the business is going and what you need to do to get there. And that's what we mean by a business plan. It's not the traditional 40-page unusable document that you wheel out for the banks. So the first element being destination, we then look at the next element, which is about time. So this fits really well with the WealthBuilders leverage acronym, the first acronym that we use. So the T in first within WealthBuilders refers to leverage of time. If you can't leverage time, then you need to find other ways of building wealth. And time is really important for us at the foundation level of what we do in Action Coach as well. Because without making sure that the owners of the business and the people within the business have the right time available to focus on the right tasks, then you can't build the business in the direction that you want to go. If you're permanently reacting, if there is no time to deal with the really urgent or really important tasks within your business so that you can build it as well as keep the business operating on a day-to-day basis, then there's no way to build. So those two are probably the elements that the majority of people I talk to in the first instance want to fix within their business. What we generally find is if you have a business that's been running for 3 or 5 years, generally you're doing the right things in terms of the day-to-day delivery of the business. The question would be, is that going to get you where you want to go? And how are you managing tasks to make sure that you are able to follow that path? Does that make sense, Christian?
Yeah, that absolutely does.
Okay, so the other two elements of the foundation level, the mastery level within our 6 steps, are delivery mastery. So this isn't about having the best delivery of whatever product or service it is that you do in your marketplace, even at this point, but it is about building a consistent experience for your customers so that when we get to the next level, which is all about growth, building customers, building orders within your business, that you're not losing customers as quickly as you're bringing them in. So delivery has to be consistent. It has to be as good as it needs to be to retain your customers in whatever it is that you do. And it has to be process driven so that the experience that customers receive is great and it's consistently great. So delivery is an area where a lot of businesses, especially those businesses started by somebody who really understands their field really well, delivery tends to be one of the areas that most businesses are quite good at if they manage to survive the first 3 or 5 years. So generally we don't spend a lot of time on that. In some businesses we do, and again, the scorecard that you can download, the PDF you can download, allows you to look at this from your business perspective and mark yourself, if you like, as to whether this is something that you need to focus on or not. Finally, in the mastery level, we look at financial mastery. Now, this is quite an interesting one because a lot of the businesses I work with initially don't have the appropriate financial measures and key performance indicators in place to understand how well their business is doing. Business rely on the year-end report that they're We've been talking to a number of people recently who, whilst they understand that their business is making money, they may have 3 or 4 product lines within their business, and they don't know which of those are highly profitable, and in some cases, which are not profitable at all. So when we talk about financial mastery, we talk about the basics. So the basics being a monthly profit and loss statement that you can analyze and make decisions with. Also a good view of your debtor balance, so your debtor days, your days sales outstanding, your receivables, if you like. And again, you'd be surprised how many businesses are profitable but are allowing so much of their money to sit within other people's bank accounts because they're not being paid on time. And we also, as a basic, would look at cash flow. So the 3 basics, P&L, debtors, and cash flow, are absolutely the minimal levels of financial mastery you need to get to be able to run your business. A little bit more sophisticated then, we go into product line profitability, we go into understanding and leverage on the balance sheet, we look at break-even point, which is back down to product line profitability, and we can start looking at turning your financial numbers into some sort of dashboard that you can use to let you know if you're still on track in terms of where you want your business to go. So in terms of the mastery level, those are the 4 key elements of what you need to get right in order to build a foundation that your business can grow on.
Yeah, I like that. So just to recap for everyone listening now, so of the 6-step pyramid, we've just covered step 1, which is mastery, and that's almost got 4 building blocks, hasn't it? There, destination, time, delivery, and financial.
Yeah, that's right. And what you find is we most businesses, you don't need to go into all of them at the same time. There will be 1 or 2 that need some attention, and the others will generally be going okay. The other element you find is as a business grows and scales, it's not linear. You tend to go in growth spurts, then in consolidation phases, then another growth spurt, then a consolidation phase. And as you go through each consolidation phase, it's good to look back at the foundation level, the mastery level, because the foundation for a smaller business may not be the suitable foundation that you need to get to the level of growth, maybe 2 or 3 phases further on. So we do keep coming back to that to make sure that your foundation is strong enough for the next level of growth.
That's great. And that second step, Mark?
Okay, so the second step we call niche. Now, a lot of this, we've got 6 elements to niche. 5 of them are the 5 ways, which Chris Henry explained to us all on the last podcast. Mm-hmm. So I don't intend to go into those. But what I would say about niche is the principle of niche is to build a business that is special enough, that is niched enough to be able to take you away from purely fighting on price. The principle being that, okay, you need to be charging a price that is realistic in your marketplace, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a low one. It needs to be in the ballpark, but you can certainly be top end. And if you look at the first element of that, your unique selling point, your USP, and the guarantees that you offer are a good way to think about how you build your specific niche within your industry. Because if you can get that right, all of a sudden you can compete on things other than price. And this is where we look at creating a profitable enterprise as well as an enterprise that can just sell stuff and receive money for it.
That's right. And as you say, in our last episode, episode 40, Chris Henry took us through the 5 ways to increase your business profits. And that is all of those elements that are in step 2 there, such as, number of leads, measuring conversion rates, average spend, number of transactions. So definitely head on back to episode 40 to dive into that. But as you say, if you don't have that first step, that foundation in place, then, you're not in the right position to be measuring these factors, are you?
Absolutely. So if you can't understand product line profitability, or you can't see your monthly P&L, or you can't check your cash flow, or whatever it is, then it's really difficult to make the other measures in the 5 ways work for you anyway.
Mm-hmm. So that moves on to the third step, Mark.
Yep. This is a leverage step, not to be confused with the WealthBuilders leverage system, but there are similarities again. And this is about how you build a leverage within your business. So this is about building systems and processes that can make the business work without having to rely too much on any single individual. So we use another phrase to illustrate this, which is that you should look to systemize the routine. So you have processes and systems that drive routine aspects of your business, and you should look to humanize the exception. So if you think about the team within your business, you've got some great people in your business. Would you rather have them spending time fixing broken systems, making workarounds for things that don't work properly, dealing with things that haven't worked and having to put them right again? Or would you rather have them working well with the special stuff that you can provide as a business to make your customer experience even better? So if you have strong systems and processes in place, and you can train and develop your team so that they can provide the great customer contact for the exception elements that don't fit necessarily within the routine, then you've got a winning formula there, in that you're administering the business as cost effectively and as delivery effectively as possible through systems and processes, but you've also got great people involved when customers need that little bit extra, or that little bit more, or that little bit of advice, or whatever it might be. So many businesses don't have time to look after what makes things special for their customers because their people are too busy trying to run a business that doesn't have effective processes in place. If you think to your own experiences of how you deal with some of the larger companies that we deal with in the UK, I've got a couple of special ones that I know every time I ring them, the system and process won't work. And I know that it's going to be a very, very painful task just to get a routine thing done. I'm thinking certain telecoms providers, I'm thinking certain TV and internet providers, for example. That's not the reputation you want for your business. So leverage is important because when we think about commercial profitable enterprise that works without you, the first step, the mastery step, is the commercial one. So this isn't a hobby. This is a true, proper business that's built on good, sound business principles. It's profitable because you've built your niche using the 5 ways, the USPs and the guarantees that we've got there. And it works because the leverage level of the 6 steps is providing the systems and processes, but also, just as importantly, the time and the expertise for your team to deal with the 20% of non-routine stuff that we all have to do. And eventually we get to the 4th step in the pyramid, which is the bit about the business that works without you. We call that the team level. So if you think about a business that can work without you, I'd encourage everyone listening to this from the perspective of a business owner to actually just take a moment and draw out the organization chart that your business will need to have in the next 3 to 5 years that will make sense for the business, that will help the business work and operate really well, and see where your name, in which boxes your name has to be. Because realistically, what we want to be designing here is an organization that doesn't need you to be in any of the boxes. So as you get through the layers of the people who do the work of your business into the management layers maybe of your business, who's in that box that says MD or general manager or whatever it is within your business? If that's you and you want it to be you, that's fine. How much time do you want to put into that? How do you want that to work? For everything else, it's about how do you make sure that you are building the right team to allow you to step back to the extent that you want from your business in that period of time. Now, some of my clients, what we've decided is actually we're going to start building our own team bottom up. So they have mini academies, if you like, where they bring apprentices into the business, which allows everybody within their business to progress through. And we kind of build people into the employees that we want for those companies so they don't pick up all the bad habits from the rest of the industry. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is having amazing recruitment systems so you know how to get the right people. And the right people is not necessarily all about skill. Yes, people need a minimum skill level, but they also need to have the right attitude, be the right people, fit with the team, and be able to make it work. Finally, we look at things like the environment of the company. What's the company culture? How's that being led and managed? What's the points of culture within the company that allow people to really enjoy coming to work there, know that they're delivering a really worthwhile day's work, but actually they're also working hard and appreciating the fact that the company is working for them. So the team level is all about the right people in the right places within your business and understanding where you fit within that. So those 4 levels build the commercial profitable enterprise that works without you. The final 2 levels, the final 2 steps within the 6 steps, synergy is about the one that says, okay, so at this point, you've got the right team in place. You understand how to make your business work from a process perspective. You understand how to build the sales and marketing machine for your business through the niche elements, which is USP, guarantee, and 5 ways, and you've got a really strong foundation. So in theory now, you have everything you need to build the operating manual for your business, which means if you want to replicate that business, let's say you have a trade business somewhere in the north of England, a plumber or an electrician somewhere in the north of England, and you want to replicate that in the next county, or maybe in the Midlands or the south of England. What you have, if you've built the structure right, is the operating manual that teaches you how to do that. A little bit like McDonald's when they open a new McDonald's franchise. It's written down how you go about doing it. from how you acquire the land to how you build the restaurant to how you recruit the team and so on. So it's quite easy to replicate. And finally, the sixth level is when actually you stop being the business owner. And if anybody's read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, this is the transition from business owner to investor, if you like. So what you've created here, and we call this the results level, is the results from the business that you've grown and replicated, and you no longer have to be working in for all of your working week to be able to generate the leverage in terms of financial leverage, systems leverage, and time leverage, going back to the Wealth Builders first system, to be able to invest more rather than run the business. So this is when you become the investor. Now, that might be more outlets in your business. That might be other businesses. It might be property. It might be stock market investments. It might be some other form of passive income. But that's when you stop being the owner of a business and you start being an investor with that business in their portfolio. Does that make sense, Christian?
It certainly does make sense, Mark. That is really, really insightful. And I'm looking at the scorecard as we're talking through this. If, as mentioned earlier, you haven't got access to that, then definitely do click on the show notes and download a copy of this, because it's got everything laid out. In fact, there's 20 different aspects there. I'm just counting them up, Mark, where you can actually score yourself out of 10. And it's incredible. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Mark. And I know that is going to be of huge value to everybody who's focusing on their business pillar. And thank you for your time today.
No problem. And Christian, as you said before, if anybody wants to talk this through in a bit more detail, because it is quite a complex framework that it's difficult to explain in a very short period of time, then there are other action coaches. There's myself within the Wealth Builders program. Feel free to contact me. We also have Chris Henry, Richard Perry, Chris Warham, and William Roig within the Wealth Builders community, and I'm sure all of those would be happy to help anybody further with this if they wanted to talk through the 6 steps again.
I'm sure they will. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mark.
No problem. Thanks, Chris.